Welcome to Damn Good Movie Memories with your host, Brian Davis. This podcast is the cure for your long commute and super boring workday.
This won't be like anything you've ever done before, little brother.
Target leaving the palace now.
There's Daddy.
From the producer of The Hunt for Red October.
Get down!
Based on the best-selling novel, comes the summer's most explosive motion picture.
Buddy.
So, you just waded on in like John Wayne.
I couldn't just stand there and watch him shoot those people. It was rage. Pure rage.
A reluctant soldier.
They were moving him to Albany Prison on the Isle of Wight when it happened.
We are unarmed.
We know he's escaped.
We think he's left the country.
In a war that isn't his.
What Ryan done can't be undone, so you should stop thinking about it.
I can't.
There's never been a terrorist attack on American soil, Jack. These men are professionals. Personal revenge rarely plays into it.
But I killed his brother. Let's do it.
A man fighting for everything he holds dear.
Where's Sally?
Let's sit down for a moment.
No, talk to me.
For justice.
I'm after the man who tried to kill my family. I want back in. Who are we looking for here? IRA terrorists or some ultra-violent faction of the IRA? This is who we should be looking for. We find her, we'll find them.
For freedom.
Where are you taking me? It's you who've taken us, Jack, into battle.
ETA, 35 seconds.
SAS could take on any one of these camps. Are you sure this is the same girl?
For family.
He's never gonna let us go, is he? I don't care what you have to do. You just get it.
For keeps.
Where's Sean Miller? Get me hostage rescue at Quantico now.
Airborne support approaching target area.
Patriot games.
Hey there, it's Brian Davis, and for this week's episode, we're going to cover the movie Patriot Games from 1992. The studio was Paramount Pictures, release date was June 5th, 1992. The running time, 117 minutes, and was rated R. The budget was $45 million, the box office took in $83 million, making it the 14th ranked movie of 1992. Roger Ebert at the time gave it 2.5 out of 4 stars. Here's his review. You don't expect a Tom Clancy movie to end with people tracking each other around a darkened house, followed by a gun battle involving 2 speedboats, one of them on fire on a dark and stormy night. I haven't read Clancy's Patriot Games, and for all I know, this movie is faithful to his book, but on the basis of The Hunt for a Red October, which I have read, I expected this one to be a little more cerebral and without the Indiana Jones ending. There is a touch of Clancy in the behind-the-scenes stuff about the Irish national movement, and there are a couple of shallow, unconvincing, but obligatory scenes where Ryan gets a dressing down from his once and future CIA bosses. But then the movie settles into more traditional thriller patterns, until it all comes down to people creeping around in a dark basement. Clancy is known for his expertise on high-tech, state-of-the-art weapons and surveillance systems. And for me, the most intriguing scenes in the movie involve survey satellites that are used to spy on the activities at terrorist training camps in the Sahara. If you think that's amazing, wait until you see the heat-sensitive photography used to provide live pictures of a night raid on the camp. We can actually see people getting killed. Although, unless I missed something, the movie doesn't bother to explain why all the terrorists are still alive in the following scenes. Patriot Games includes the usual decisions that are made only by the characters and thrillers. For example, aware that vicious hitmen have targeted his family, Ryan takes his wife and daughter to their isolated summer home on a windy and rain-swept coast. I forgive movies for decisions like this, because I know that if Ryan did the obvious thing and set up bunks for his family inside of a vault at CIA headquarters in Langley, the movie would be over. But such decisions don't make the characters seem much brighter. Patriot Games at least has the virtue in this season of soft porn masquerading as hardcore thrillers, of being about subjects more interesting than the characters' sex lives. The high-tech stuff is absorbing. Harrison Ford once again demonstrates what a solid, convincing actor he is, and there's good supporting work from Ann Archer, Thora Birch as the Ryan's precocious daughter, and the irreplaceable James Fox as a British cabinet member. But at the end, when a character is leaping into a burning speedboat in choppy seas, I wondered if this was exactly what Tom Clancy had in mind. That's the end of Ebert's review. So reading Ebert's review of Patriot Games today, you have to wonder if maybe he would view things differently now. For the most part, he wasn't a huge fan of 1980s action flicks. But now, seeing films from the 80s and 90s with real stunts, done by stunt actors, along with real explosions, is kind of a treat to watch. So while CGI makes things easier for filmmakers, it has also led to sterile films, which is exactly what you have today. They all look the same, and they're boring. It's sort of like cars of today. They all look and they feel the same. It's just boring. And this is why I continue to live in the past when it comes to films. I rarely get excited for new films. Instead, I get excited for films from the past that I haven't seen yet or haven't watched in a really long time. Hopefully this podcast does the same for you, to relive the past and find movies that you have never seen before and just appreciate for what the art of films used to be. All right, let's get into the making of the film. After the very successful box office numbers for The Hunt for Red October in 1990, of course, Paramount wanted to adapt another Tom Clancy novel featuring the Jack Ryan character. The tricky decision was to determine which novel to adapt next. Now, if you went chronologically, the next novel would have been Red Storm Rising from 1986, but that novel did not feature Jack Ryan, though the main character in the story, Robert Toland, was similar to Jack Ryan. Producer Mace Neufeld felt that two novels were the natural film adaptations, Patriot Games and Queer and Present Danger. What is interesting is he didn't seem interested in the novel, which was the actual sequel to The Hunt for Red October, which was called The Cardinal of the Kremlin from 1988. In any case, the idea was to write two scripts simultaneously to have the continuity of both stories locked in. And if you analyze both films, Patriot Games is definitely more of a family-themed film for Jack Ryan, the character, as opposed to Queer and Present Danger, which is more pure action-oriented. Screenwriter Donald Stewart, who wrote the adaptation for The Hunt for Red October, was brought in to write Patriot Games. But it wasn't exactly to everyone's liking, and Peter Iliff was hired to rewrite Stewart's script, and then Patriot Games was born. The producers and Paramount wanted Alec Baldwin to return and take on the Jack Ryan character again, but Baldwin at the time wanted to do a Broadway play instead of the film. Harrison Ford had just dropped out of a film at Paramount, and it was great timing as the producers sent the script to Ford to see if he was interested in Patriot Games. Prior to being sent the script, Ford hadn't been interested in Clancy's novels, especially The Hunt for Red October, where he felt the Sean Connery character was a much better part than how Jack Ryan was portrayed in that film, which is true actually. Now this wouldn't be the case in Patriot Games, as the Ryan character had much more depth, using equal amount of brains and brawn. He's not an action hero. He's an analyst with combat skills due to his military background, but nothing over the top. Director Philip Noyce was relatively new to Hollywood, though he had made 6 films in his home country of Australia, including 1989's Dead Calm with Sam Neill, Nicole Kidman, and Billy Zane. However, Harrison Ford had approval rights to which director he worked with, and initially he hadn't heard of Noyce. But he had seen one of his films called Newsfront from 1978. He loved that film, much to the release of Noyce and Paramount. Getting Ford on board also meant revising the script. The character was no longer 35 years old, like Alec Baldwin. He was now in his late 40s and early 50s. But regardless of being older, Ford was in great shape and loved doing his own stunts as much as possible. Ann Archer was intrigued by the part because it was a Harrison Ford movie, which meant at the time a big-budget film which would be shown to a wide audience, including international audiences. Ford had been box office gold as a main star since Indiana Jones in 1981 with Raiders of the Lost Ark. And while the film Blade Runner wasn't a box office smash, it's now viewed by sci-fi fans in high regard. Plus, he had a number of hits leading up to Patriot Games, of course with 2 Indiana Jones sequels, Witness, Working Girl, Presumed Innocent, and Regarding Henry, not to mention the 3 original Star Wars movies. Archer understandably wanted more of a draw film-wise, as her biggest hit by far was playing Michael Douglas's wife in Fatal Attraction in 1987. He also had a great supporting cast with James Earl Jones, Samuel L. Jackson, Richard Harris, and Sean Bean. Speaking of James Earl Jones, Philip Noyce said that he was the finest actor he ever worked with. And even though Jones only has roughly 25 lines in the film, he really does make his mark. Jones is a presence in every he's in, even if it's just his voice, like Star Wars. All right, let's get into the film. So it opens with ex-CIA analyst Jack Ryan, that's Harrison Ford, and his family staying temporarily in London while he gives a lecture for the Royal Naval Academy. Ryan teaches history at the U.S. Naval Academy. His wife Kathy, that's Ann Archer, and his young daughter Sally, played by Thora Birch, also join Jack on this trip. After Jack gives his lecture, he meets with Kathy and Sally outside of the lecture hall. However, their meeting is interrupted as a terrorist attack happens right as they're about to meet. A rogue group of the IRA, which is the Irish Republican Army, attempted to kidnap the British Minister of State for Northern Ireland. Jack quickly moves Kathy and Sally out of harm's way before instinctively intervening and stopping the attackers. He tackled one, grabbed their gun, then shot and killed the other two members. Jack himself was wounded after being shot in the shoulder. The terrorist group is led by Kevin O'Donnell, played by Patrick Bergin. He escapes by car before the police can catch him. Sean Miller, played by Sean Bean, is arrested, but his brother is one of the men killed by Jack. Thankfully, Kathy is a medical doctor and treats Jack before the ambulance arrives. Miller is interrogated by the police, but refuses to divulge the whereabouts of any of his group. In the meantime, O'Donnell foils an attempt by the official IRA to kill him and decides to flee to North Africa. Jack testifies in court, and Miller is tried and convicted. After the trial, the Ryan family goes back home to Maryland, and Kathy informs Jack that she's pregnant. Miller is completely fixated on avenging his brother's death, which means going after Jack Ryan and his family. While being transported to prison to serve out his sentence, the van carrying Miller and the officer are ambushed by O'Donnell and his operatives. Miller is released by O'Donnell, and then Miller shoots and kills all of the officers on board, including the main inspector. Back in Maryland, Jack is paid a visit by his friend and colleague Admiral James Greer, that's James Earl Jones. He's also visited by CIA agent Marty Cantor, played by J.E. Friedman. They inform Jack about Miller's escape and the potential danger Jack could face. He also offers Jack a chance to work again for the CIA, and Jack declines, because he doesn't want to put his family through the stress of that life again. Back in London, the British minister is debriefed about Miller's escape, and we toggle back to Maryland, where Jack is lecturing his class of Academy cadets. We are introduced to Lieutenant Commander Robbie Jackson, that's Samuel L. Jackson. We also see Kathy in action performing surgery.
How in the world could something like this have happened?
Inspector Harlan picked the day, picked the decoy routes, picked the men, and still they knew.
He had 2 children, apparently.
It's tragic. Tragic.
SO-13 have narrowed it down to 31 people who had prior knowledge of your itinerary on the day of the attack and of Miller's transfer. 5 of whom are now dead.
Sir, I think it might be best if we limit your appointments for the time being.
I will not have my itinerary dictated to me by terrorists.
Whoever this traitor is, they better pray to God I never find him.
We know you'll do your best, Sergeant.
A guest appealed to Athens on what basis? On what grounds?
Mr. Biederman?
Bad time for you?
Well, they said they'd be grateful.
Didn't they?
Yeah.
Fight our battle and the rest of the world will fear and respect you.
Yeah, but didn't the rest of the world fear and respect Athens already?
Didn't matter.
Didn't matter? Why not?
Pride, sir?
That's the battle they lost. The real battle.
Tension on deck.
Attention to orders. I have a presentation to make. For service above and beyond the call of duty of a tourist, even a Marine, we recognize Professor John Patrick Ryan with the Order of the Purple Target and hope that he will duck Next time, lest he become part of history rather than a teacher of it.
How old is he?
10.
Plate glass window?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Hi, guys.
Morning, Kathy.
I got a retina at 1 o'clock. We might have to bump it. This could take some time. Yep, let's bump it.
We're all set to go.
Okay, let's do it.
So, you just waded on in like John Wayne. Why'd you do it? What were you thinking, man?
I don't know. I wasn't thinking.
That's it? You sound like some of my students.
Just pissed me off. I couldn't just stand there and watch him shoot those people right in front of me. It was rage. Pure rage. Just made me mad.
Well, here's hoping you never get mad at me, man.
Well, Jack is going to be extra hungry when he finds out that Miller is in the U.S. and looking to kidnap or kill Sally, as he and another guy are waiting for her to be picked up from school by Kathy. Jack's being followed as well, but discovers his tail and fights him off before the hitman is shot and killed by CIA security. It's then Jack realizes that Kathy is in danger as well. Jack gets in his car and tries to call her on his car phone. Yes, it's 1992, folks.
Kath, something's happened, honey. Is Sally with you?
Yeah? Hi, Dad!
Is everything all right?
Yeah, everything's fine.
There she is.
Right.
Honey, I want you to get off the highway and get to the nearest police station as quick as you can, all right?
The police station?
Kathy, just get off the highway right now. Steady, Meg. Steady. Where are you now?
I'm at Row Boulevard.
There's a state police barracks at Houston Street. I'll meet you there.
Okay. Is something wrong, Mom? No, everything's fine. It's okay.
Miller shoots at Kathy's car from his van and she crashes head-on into an off-ramp divider. Kathy and Sally are airlifted by helicopter to the hospital. Kathy suffered a concussion, but her unborn baby is fine. However, Sally is in critical condition and had to have her spleen removed, but thankfully she will make a full recovery. After the relief of knowing his wife and daughter are okay, a very motivated Jack decides to rejoin the CIA and put a stop to the terror group.
You know the deal, Jack. Come on, you are involved. That is not good process. You are the victim of a crime, and that does not make for the best analysis. Even if you knew something about terrorism, which you do not. I have guys on it. Guys who know something about the art.
Standing here.
This is not naval.
Marty, I am not
You know
standing
better.
here with my hat in my hand. I am telling you, I want back in.
Jack?
Sir.
Thank God about Sally.
Thank you.
Alice and I are relieved beyond words. You manage any sleep?
Not much, sir.
I'm interrupting something. You were explaining to Jack about how we'd be better off without him around here. Or something along those lines.
Mark's
Spiva? Jack Ryan. Tony Farrow. Hi. Alex Winter. Jack. Rich Rose.
Well,
Rose.
I have to say you're looking better than I expected.
It's an illusion, I'm afraid.
Of course it would have to be, wouldn't it? Well, it's good to see you again regardless.
You too.
Look, we've carved a niche for you. And here's your night table reading.
Jack immerses himself with intel about the rogue IRA splinter cell.
Kevin O'Donnell, longtime IRA strategist, friend of the Miller family. He was there when Timothy Miller was killed, 79. Looked after his boys, Sean and Patrick. And this photo's not a year old. I think if we could find O'Donnell, we'll find Miller still standing at his side.
That's not 96.
Are you with me, Jack?
Yeah. Just thinking.
What about the gun? And the shooter
about
from
it?
Annapolis?
Think he's going to turn it register? Working on the
Asking a question.
Son of a bitch.
What?
Look, SO13 gets an anonymous tip about some bomb-like stuff on a table in an apartment. They go in, they get some IRA bad guys, they look around, they see there's no way anybody could have seen through the window like the tipster said. We got 3 IRA hitmen at a farmhouse, hit by somebody else.
That's British soldiers getting out of hand, Jack. They're not above it, not after a hit on the royal family.
No. Look. We got brigade commander of the IRA, Jimmy O'Riordan, checks into a cheap hotel room, ends up dead, double tap to the head. Very professional. And that was how long after the farmhouse?
Same day.
Same day.
What are you coming to, Jack?
Jack? Where are you going?
I'm just going to go throw some water on my face.
Jack, after excusing himself, realizes that after the attempt on his life the same day Sean shot at Kathy's car, that a woman with long red hair was driving a Jeep next to the hitman, a similar-looking woman that was in England when Jack prevented the kidnapping attempt of the British Minister of State. Jack makes it clear that they need to look for the woman with the long red hair. That's Annette, played by Polly Walker. That's O'Donnell's girlfriend. Miller is informed by O'Donnell while in North Africa that not only is Jack still alive, but so are his wife and daughter. An infuriated Miller decides that he must return to the United States to finish the job, though everyone is against this move. The more Miller tempts fate by being in the U.S., the likelihood of him being captured or killed increases. Jack's home in Maryland will have round-the-clock surveillance and special agent protection, but that does little to calm the nerves of Jack, who knows unless he takes out Miller, his family will never be safe. Jack goes to Ireland to meet with Paddy O'Neill, played by Richard Harris, whom is leading the effort to fight for Irish independence, but without resorting to terrorist attacks.
Can I buy you a drink?
No. Let me buy you one. 2 whiskeys.
The IRA is not responsible for all this, I know that.
Are you waiting for me to agree with you? I've been saying this to the press till I'm blue in the face.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? You claim responsibility for one thing, deny it for another. Nobody believes you anymore. I want to know where Sean Miller and Kevin O'Donnell are.
Let me try and understand this. You want me to sell out my fellow Irishmen to you? Is that why you came down here? You don't understand me at all.
Oh, I think I do.
Look, I don't give a damn what they've done. But the day that I sell out my countrymen will be the day that I put a bullet through my own head.
First time here in Washington, D.C. Big hand.
That's it then, huh?
That's it. You know, on second thoughts, maybe I won't have a drink with you.
Okay, then I'll go home.
Have a safe trip.
I'll go home and call the TV stations. Give them what they want. Let them take their cameras into my daughter's hospital room. Put it on the evening news.
I don't give a shit whether you did it or not, and neither will anyone else. But I will put such a stranglehold on your gun money, you'll be out in the street throwing rocks. I will fucking destroy you. I will make it my mission in life.
Excuse me.
Oh, lads, did you hear that?
Jack knows the only way to find where Miller and his army are hiding in North Africa is to recalibrate the satellites to monitor their whereabouts. However, are the grainy images that suggest that Annette is in the camp enough to warrant an airstrike attack to take out the Splinter Cell? Well, there's about 40 minutes left, and that question is answered along with many others, including if Patty O'Neill will change his mind about helping Jack with his mission to capture Miller and O'Donnell for the greater good of the IRA cause. The final outcome is a terrific thrill ride and definitely a nice payoff for the slow buildup of the film, regardless of what Ebert thought in his review. Also, there's a nice cliffhanger that isn't a thriller that ends the film, which is well done. So while some will claim that The Hunt for Red October is the best Jack Ryan film of the series, I don't necessarily agree. I agree that it's an excellent film, mostly due to Sean Connery, but I personally lean towards the two Harrison Ford Jack Ryan films as being the best in the series. And I think Patriot Games is a good way to start your Jack Ryan fix, if of course espionage films interest you. Alright, some fun facts. Tom Clancy was not a fan of the adaptation of Patriot Games and disassociated himself from the production after reading the first draft of the script. Now this is a spoiler alert, so do what you will. The original ending was supposed to have Jack and Miller fighting underwater in a suspenseful scene where you don't know which man would pop up alive. However, while it sounded great on paper, the test audiences hated it because it played out so slow because you can't move briskly underwater. This is why you get the ending that everyone knows. During the shooting of the climactic fight scene between Ryan and Miller on the boat, Harrison Ford accidentally injured Sean Bean by a blow with the boat hook, leaving a bleeding cut. The resulting scar was later used for Bean's title character in Sharp, which came out in 1993, which was enhanced by makeup. So the attack on the members of the royal family at the beginning of the film was actually inspired by a similar true-life attempt to kidnap Princess Anne on March 20th, 1974. She was in her car when a man shot her guard and driver. She was subsequently helped by a passerby who attacked the criminal and saved her. The novel version had the Prince and Princess of Wales and their baby as the target of the kidnapping attempt. All right, somebody I didn't have to kidnap to be on this podcast to talk about Patriot Games was Sonny Pooney of the Grown Up Rock podcast and Podcast Rock City. He joins me to talk about this film. Where does it rank in the Jack Ryan films for him? I think we find out. I'm trying to remember. I record these at different times, folks. Anyway, let's talk to Sonny now. He's always a good time. And then I'll be back next week to talk about yet another random film from my DVD collection.
Okay, we're back with Sonny Pooney from the Grown Up Rock podcast and, of course, Podcast Rock City. Welcome back, Sonny.
Oh, it's good to be back. You know, I love my movies if it's the right ones.
Well, that's a good. This leads me to my first question. So, I remember personally not being a huge fan of the Hunt for the Red October as a kid because I thought it was a bit too slow in pacing. But as time went on, I kind of like it a little bit more. However, I love Patriot Games when I first saw it because it seemed like nonstop action. So, were you a fan of the Jack Ryan character before Patriot Games came out? And then did you see it in the theater? And did you even like the Hunt for the Red October?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I'm not a reader at all, right? Okay. So I just never enjoyed it. So I'd much rather see the movie instead. And I get the whole piece of, well, the director you're seeing it through the director's eyes. So if you don't read the book, then you're not seeing it through your own eyes. Whatever. I don't care. Mm-hmm. So when Hunt for Red October first came out, I was 1,000% in. Because I was a huge Sean Connery fan at the time. He was coming out with some great movies. And even though that the movie was a little slow, I loved it from the get-go. So when Patriot Games came out and people were talking about, oh, this is the second novel, blah, blah, I'm like, I don't know what that means, dude. I don't read. I don't know what it means. And I remember first thing I'm like, well, that's not Baldwin. Like,
right.
Are we changing actors already? Like, is this going to happen with every... and I don't know if this novelist has done 18 books or 3 books because I don't read, so I don't know. Right. So I'm like, well, if he's going to have a different actor every time, this is going to start to suck. So when I saw Patriots Game the first time, my problem is I don't like war movies. Never have. Mm-hmm. And after 9/11 happened, I wasn't already watching war movies. I will not watch any of those type of movies at all. Mm-hmm. So when I first saw Patriot Games, I'm like, that looks a little war-y to me. I don't know. But then you look at the blockbuster box and you're like, oh, it doesn't look very war. Looks more, like terrorist. To me, that's different.
Yeah,
right?
espionage.
Yeah, espionage, spy thrillers, I love. Right,
Yeah.
the war thing I don't like so much. So I did a Blockbuster rental, is what I remember doing on this one, and because it came out in 92, I was in the clubs 5 nights a week.
Yeah,
right. So I'm at the Omni or the One Step Beyond or the Stone every night. There was no way I was going to watch this in the theater. So I probably didn't even see it till like the mid 90s. I remember first time I saw it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's that Indiana Jones dude. It's okay. And then after watching it 2 or 3 times over the next probably 4 or 5 years, I think I liked it more and more and more. And then when Clear and Present Danger came out, I'm like, okay, I need to watch all 3 again and see kind of what the feel is.
Sure. Now, you mentioned Alec Baldwin, and that's the obvious next question. So he never revised his role as Jack Ryan. Would you have liked to see Baldwin continue as Jack Ryan, or were you happy with the Harrison Ford taking over? You kind of alluded to, that's Indiana Jones guy. He is a little bit older than what the character is in the book, but since you didn't read the book, that doesn't really matter to you. So, yeah, would you have rather had Alec Baldwin stay, or were you eventually just, okay, fine, it's Harrison Ford's deal now?
Yeah, at the beginning, I would have rather had Baldwin. Now in 2024, knowing who Baldwin kind of became and who Harrison Ford kind of became, I'm glad that Harrison Ford stepped in.
Yeah.
I didn't know that the person was supposed to be younger. Sounds like Clancy had problems with that when this movie was going. It's like, what are you guys doing to my character? It just made him 15 years older than he's supposed to be. I guess he had problems with it. I didn't. But then, Harrison Ford is one of those guys until like the last probably 10 or 15 years, he never seemed that old to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, right? Where Clint Eastwood seemed old the first time I saw him, right? And for whatever reason, Harrison, I guess, is not playing to his age, but he's also playing a character that's supposed to be the loving guy that happens to be this other guy. So maybe he doesn't have to play super macho, so the age is okay.
And 3 years earlier, he was in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So it's possible that, you can kind of suspend disbelief. Maybe he's just kind of that internally young-looking guy. And plus, the character Jack Ryan, he's not like a badass action guy. He has his moments, but really, he's a numbers cruncher.
And when he has his moments in both this movie and the next movie, the moments, they don't seem uncomfortable. But they seem like, goddamn, he is getting really lucky because that dude could really kick his ass a little bit.
That's good.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you totally nailed it. So leading to the next question, how would you rank the Jack Ryan? So you have Alec Baldwin, Harrison Ford, Ben Affleck, Chris Pine, and then for the show, it was John Krasinski. How would you rank them by how you like them?
Yeah, I would say Harrison Ford's going to be number 1. Alec is going to be 2. Pine's probably 3, and I don't care about the rest.
Okay, so you didn't care about the one that what was it, the sum of all whatever?
Yeah.
And then did you watch the TV series?
I tried it, didn't love it.
Okay,
yeah. I need that kind of stuff. The espionage type stuff, and when 24 came out and all these other things came out, it's hard for me when it's like 7 seasons of it.
Yeah.
Right. I could barely tolerate like Quantico, and it had Priyanka. That was the reason I was even watching, and I could barely tolerate that. So I was like, I need that stuff in like a 2-hour movie.
Got it.
Yeah.
See, that's funny because today, like I'd say, most people binge watch. Like to watch a 2-hour, 2.5-hour film, like, oh, no way, I'm not going to do that. But they'll easily binge 5 hours of a TV show. So it's funny how viewing has changed. I think this is the first Harrison Ford film that you and I have discussed. So I'm assuming you were a big Indiana Jones fan prior to Patriot Games, but I don't know. If not, what are your other go-to Harrison Ford films?
I've liked most of what he's put out. He's very much like Clint Eastwood to me. I'm either all in or all out. So, like, I love The Fugitive. I liked the first Indiana Jones movie and the third, but didn't love the second. But I think the third had to do with Connery, probably.
Sure.
I'm not a Star Wars, Star Trek guy, so I get it. He did all that crap. I don't care. None of that stuff matters to me. So, yeah, it's kind of hit and miss for me. And same thing, just like I said with Clint Eastwood, there's like certain movies I like, but I don't care he was Dirty Harry. I never watched the movies.
Got it.
Right, so, I don't know. I guess it's timing.
Now, I'm assuming there's one movie you did like. This seems like up your alley. Did you like Working Girl?
I did.
Yeah.
I did like Working Girl. Yeah, because that was, that whole rom-com thing is my deal there.
Yeah, and it is a great movie with Melanie Griffith and Sigourney Weaver. It's fun. And then, did you ever see Witness?
I have not seen Witness.
That one you might like. It is a bit slow, but it's more of a detective thriller that ends up taking place in Amish country. So it is well done. It came out in '85, so that might be one to worth going back to. This has Patriot Games has a great supporting cast. You have Ann Archer that plays his wife. James Earl Jones is in it. Samuel L. Jackson, Sean Bean. Who's your favorite side character of this film?
Okay, I will say we'll take Ann Archer out. She looks incredible.
Yeah.
Right, in this movie, she looks absolutely incredible. Like if they were going for, we're going to get the soccer mom perfection lady for that time period, they got her.
Mm-hmm.
Take her out of the mix. Dude, Sean plays a great bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable bad guy. Right? And like in Ronin, his character ended up sucking. But I think this was the character that would have went well in Ronin if he would have been one of the guys that kept going. Right?
Yeah.
But he plays a great bad guy. I thought it was interesting his name was Sean. I wonder if that's weird for them. Right, that their real name, their character name's the same, because that doesn't happen too often.
Well, I'll tell you, one person it always happens to is Tony Danza. I think Tony Danza is Tony in everything.
Yeah, might be in his contract.
So you don't forget. So you're rewatching this film because you always rewatch this before we talk about this. What works and what doesn't?
Okay, let's talk about what doesn't. I like the pacing of the film overall. But at times it was almost too good, right? Because basically in an hour, Sean is in the U.S. acting as revenge.
Right.
So, we've talked about before, 90 minutes to 120 minutes is probably my bang zone on a movie.
Yep.
But a movie like this probably does need 2.5 hours, right? It needs some time to be able to get there. So that's probably a little bit, I guess, good and bad. The good. I was thinking about, could I have just stood there as the kidnapping is happening, even though I have the ability to stop this right now because I'm with my wife and kids? I'm not sure I would have been able to stand there either, right? So it was kind of good that they didn't play up the conflict he's having in his head right now. He just reacted. But, as a human, you have to assume that there was conflict there for a second, right? Then later on, when they don't got smoking gun yet, but they think they got the right place to go bomb it to oblivion to get rid of whoever they need to get rid of. And he still doesn't sign off on it because he doesn't have smoking gun. So he wants revenge on this dude, but he doesn't want it in the wrong way, which they don't play that up in the movie too much, but it's like, okay, they're still making this. This is how they're making this guy a good guy.
Right.
Because they're doing it, I guess, out of ambience and some hidden things that you wouldn't notice. But in the end, there's no way you can't be rooting for this guy, right? So I kind of like that. And then I didn't like, I guess it happens, but that whole court scene where they're almost making Harrison look like he overreacted to the situation. Like, what if you haven't got involved, you don't know what was going to happen, that kind of thing. I'm like, God, I hate those like parlor tricks in courtrooms, right? That's just a personal thing.
So you mentioned, maybe stepping in and if something's going down. Do you think it matters? Would you be hesitant if you were in a foreign country? Because I think I would, if I'm in a foreign country, I might be, less willing to do something because I'm not in my surroundings as opposed to being in the United States. Would that matter to you?
If I'm trained as this person supposedly is, I don't think so. I think what matters to me is who am I with?
Right.
Right. I think that matters more. I don't even think I think about it if I'm not with my family. But I don't want to do anything that puts my family in danger. But I can't just stand here and let this happen either. So it's just kind of, that one's tougher for me.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned that you might want, the film a bit longer for this type of plot. So this one's just under 2 hours. The next one is about 2 hours, 15 minutes, 2:20, and that's Clear and Present Danger. Which do you prefer, Patriot Games or the sequel?
Oh, the sequel to me is 200% better. And it's not really the characters, because I think the characters are in both. It's not really like the story's any different. I think being Mexico matters to me because I've been to Mexico several times, but I've not been to London several times. So it's just that we've talked about that before, about the familiar, right? You could seem to almost understand it more because it's more of the surroundings that you live in day out. And when things are happening between Mexico and U.S., which even in that movie seems to happen fast, feels more believable because, well, we lived 6 hours from it, right? So it's like, how could you get from North Africa to here to Ireland to, it's like, dude, is everybody wearing the same clothes if this all happens the same day? Like, what the hell's going on? Right? So if you're trying to put reality into it, I guess reality is a little bit easier to believe in the third movie.
Got it. So final thoughts here. So obviously you like both movies, but you would prefer Queer and Present Danger. If you were watching this, actually, does it even matter if you watch Patriot Games first, or would you go straight to Queer and Present Danger if someone hasn't seen either?
Here's what's crazy about all three movies. It wouldn't matter if you watched all three in whatever order you wanted, because except for really some tie-ins on the characters, the stories are so different, it probably wouldn't matter to you. Right? It's not like, and they don't even do a lot of tie-ins from the first movie to the second to the third. There might be little, something said here or there, but if you didn't know the difference, you would just let that pass and move on.
And I think the books might have been the same way, frankly. Like it's just the same characters, but they kind of stand on their own.
And it's true about the Indiana Jones movies too, right? I mean, you could pretty much watch them separate if you wanted to. It's not like they have an ongoing story in it.
Do you prefer that, where if you could jump in any time in like a series that has sequels, or do you like the continuity? I guess it depends, but I always like when there's callbacks, to, you're kind of in on it because you watched that first film or the first couple films.
Yeah, I'm a split decision on that. I like it because I guess there's a payoff for me for watching and loving the first movie, right? That the director of the second movie, whether they were the same or not, is trying to entice the person who loved the first movie into it with kind of these clever ways of doing it,
right,
to where only those people would understand. But then on the other hand, I am a lover of sitcoms. And the sitcoms don't have to have an attaching story the whole way through.
No.
Right? So, but like, we were talking about Yellowstone before we started recording.
Yeah.
But Yellowstone has that ongoing story. So it's hard for somebody to jump in season 2.5 and know everything that's going on. And that's what Nicole wanted to do. She's like, well, let me just start at season 3. No. I don't need all the first. I'm like, okay, well, I'll try to tell you all of it, but it's going to be very confusing because there's like 5 storylines happening at the same time.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Most movies don't have that many storylines because you only have, a finite amount, you have a small amount of time to do that. You have a window.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, thank you, Sonny. This is always great, and we have you coming on a lot after this. So thank you again.
Yeah, always a great time.
If you enjoy this podcast and are an iTunes user, please do the show a favor and head on over to the official iTunes page for Damn Good Movie Memories. Be sure to leave a rating and a review. This will allow the show to appear higher in the algorithm and spread the joy of this podcast to the masses. If you are not an iTunes user, you can still listen and subscribe on Podbean at damngoodmoviememories.podbean.com. Be sure to like us on Facebook under our Damn Good Movie Memories page. You can also listen to a limited number of episodes on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and be sure to tune in next week for an all-new episode of Damn Good Movie Memories.